Göran astronaut.
Ja. Var är busen då?
Maja astronaut.
Eller?
Sofia astronaut.
Ja, men det skulle vara någonting här också. Där ritar hon ju på kartan.
Här är tours. Är det inte dem? Här är buses. Every 15 minutes. Och här har vi en raket bakom pallen. Yeah.
5:30, 4:30 or so, and that's because we're going to have the launch viewing opportunity. Hello, Tyler. If you have tickets for the Apollo Saturn V Center, you can stay there, but if not, you'll have to come back on the buses that bring you back here. Okay? Well, we got a rich history, a lot of launches out here. Cape Canaveral Air Force Station first launch was in 1950. And if you haven't, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask some favors. Number one, please remain seated at all times. Very important it is for your safety. If you have a cell phone, out of the courtesy of everybody on the bus, let's go ahead and turn those cell phones off or put them on silent mode, quiet mode, vibrate mode. That way everyone would enjoy the tour. First video is an introduction to Kennedy Space Center. And I don't know if I saw anybody with audio guides. If you have an audio guide, at the beginning of each video there'll be a number. You punch that number into your audio guide and you will hear the video in your language. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
A rich history. A promising future. A workforce with legendary talent. At the nation's most celebrated launch complex for over half a century. This is NASA's Kennedy Space Center.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
10, 9, ignition sequence starts. 6.
We've been in this business for over 50 years. Every mission, every innovation, every new partnership is powered by decades of experience and unwavering commitment to excellence. Today we stand on the foundation of that legacy. As together we build our future in space.
Got a lot of land out here. Wherever you see water, keep your eyes out. You might see a Florida alligator. All the alligators at Kennedy Space Center is part of our volunteer security forces. They estimate we have between 5,000 to 6,000 alligators on property. They've never been able to get an exact account because every time we send somebody out to count them, they never come back. No clue. Building straight ahead, this area in front is called the industrial area. Two areas at Kennedy Space Center, industrial area and Launch Complex 39. We're going to head towards Launch Complex 39. But if we stayed on this road, went through the industrial area, went over another body of water called the Banana River, we'd end up at a place called Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. That was built back in the late 40s, early 50s. It was called the Eastern Missile Test Range. The Army was testing rockets in the early days. First launched 1950, Bumper 8, captured B-2 rocket. Then we're getting ready to go to the moon in the 60s. Well, all the launch pads over the Cape were not big enough for the mighty Saturn V rocket. Where I'm taking you, we have a real Saturn V rocket for you to look at. So we had to move over here and build everything up for the Apollo moon program. Next video is about the past, present, and future. At the end of this video, you'll see what the new Orion capsule looks like and the new rocket called the Space Launch System. Should be audio guide number 172 on your audio guide.
from the pioneering days of Mercury and Gemini to the triumph of Apollo, from the successes of the Space Shuttle to the construction of the International Space Station and the send-off of countless robotic explorers. Kennedy Space Center knows adventure on a grand scale. As the home base of NASA's Launch Services Program, we prepare and launch a variety of rockets, carrying spacecraft headed for destinations in low Earth orbit, across our solar system, and into the farthest reaches of deep space. NASA's Commercial Crew Program is taking America to new heights, with its aerospace industry partners in a revolutionary approach to human spaceflight, with the ultimate goal of developing launch systems to provide safe, reliable, and affordable astronaut access to space. NASA is working with industry to deliver cargo to the International Space Station under contracts with commercial companies. And KSC is preparing for NASA's next generation heavy lift rocket, the Space Launch System, capable of launching the Orion multi-purpose crew vehicle and additional cargo deeper into space than astronauts have ever been before.
Every day that we design Orion, we get closer to going up to places like the Moon, Mars, asteroids, or perhaps even the moons of other planets.
The launch tonight is an Atlas V. Atlas V in the future will be launching a capsule made by a commercial company called Boeing. Boeing is going to put together a rocket called the CST-100, 4 astronauts in a low Earth orbit mission. So the rockets you see tonight in the future will be launching astronauts. But NASA will be launching that big rocket that you just saw in the video, and we're going to be launching that rocket out the launch pad 3.5 miles away from that building. That's where we assemble the building. How do we take it from there out to the launch pad? 174 on your audio guide. I call this video my heavy metal video. Get it? Heavy metal.
In the peak of the space race, the Saturn V was NASA engineers' answer to manned spaceflight. Part of that mission was getting the vehicles from the Vehicle Assembly Building, or VAB, to the launch pad 3.5 miles away. NASA considered several methods for moving it: a rail line, a canal and barge, and 2 crawler transporters. Assembly began in 1965 here at KSC. The crawlers had gone through several modifications throughout the years. When they were built, the KSC crawlers were the largest tracked vehicles ever made, weighing 6 million pounds, 131 feet wide, and 114 feet long. It's comprised of 4 trucks and 8 tracks. Each of those tracks have 57 cleats, each weighing a ton. The crawler is capable of carrying 9 million pounds of mobile launch platform, plus another 3 million pounds of assembled space vehicle. They move the mobile launcher platform into the vehicle assembly building and then to the launch pad with an assembled space vehicle. Maximum speed is 1 mile, 1.6 kilometers per hour, loaded. About 2 miles, 3.2 kilometers per hour, unloaded. Launch pad to VAB trip time with the mobile launch platform is about 5 hours. When operated, it takes about 18 to 20 technicians and 7 engineers to move it along the crawlerway. So many trips, the crawler has racked up more than 3,400 miles. The crawler transporters are powered by 16 traction motors, powered by 4 1,000 kilowatt generators, driven by 2 2,750 horsepower diesel engines. 2 750 kilowatt generators, driven by 2 1,065 horsepower diesel engines, are used for jacking, steering, lighting, and ventilating, and gets an average gas mileage of 32 feet per gallon. In the future, the crawler transporters will be used for the eventual NASA Space Launch System's SLS heavy lift vehicles, as well as various commercial launch systems.
And what you see on the video is hopefully what we see in 2018 off of the tower. They're working off to the right. Again, they won't launch it here. As you saw in the video, the crawler transporter will pick that tower up. There's a platform underneath that tower. It's mobile. They pick it up, take it inside the building, stack the rocket, take it out the launch pad, 3.5 miles away, and launch it. 2018, the students will launch that new rocket. The American flag is the largest hand-painted American flag on the side of the building anywhere in the world. Before I tell you the size, let me tell you about the building. The vehicle assembly building stands 525 feet tall. That's 160 meters high. The amount of space, the volume inside that building is just a little over 129 million cubic feet of space. The American flag is 209 feet by 110. To give you a better idea how the size of that building, look at the red and white stripes on that flag. Those stripes are approximately 8.5 feet wide, ladies and gentlemen. That's wide enough that this bus we're all in would fit on one of those red or white stripes. The stars on the flag are approximately 6 feet tip to tip. If you are 6 feet tall, you are as tall as those stars are tip to tip. The big gray doors here on the right are the west side of the building. Those are high bays 2 and 4, 1 and 3 on the east side. Those doors stand 456 feet tall. When we brought the Saturn V moon rocket through those doors during the Apollo program, the top of the gantry tower would clear the top of those doors by only 6 feet, the same distance those stars are tip to tip. Now the tan buildings come up the right, those are the buildings where we used to process the orbiters. I know a lot of people call the orbiters shuttles, but the shuttle is an orbiter, 2 solid boosters, orange tank, all the components together is a shuttle. We launched a shuttle, but then land the orbiter. OV, or orbital vehicles, what it's called. These were called OPF, Orbital Processing Facilities. The one on the right is now for the United States Air Force. That's where the Boeing has a contract to process their X-37B. It's a mini shuttle drone. It's actually an OTV, Orbital Test Vehicle. So that building is called the OTVPF, Orbital Test Vehicle Processing Facility. Are you getting the acronyms? There'll be a test at the end of the tour. Off to the right, that one damn building, that's where Boeing is going to put together the CST 100 capsule. CST stands for Commercial Space Transport. That's right. Launched off with what rocket? Atlas V. You guys aren't paying attention. Atlas V is launching tonight. That's where the CST is going to be launched off of. Here on the right, you see a platform. That's a mobile launch platform setting on pedestals. As you saw in the video, the crawler goes underneath, hydraulically lifts it up and moves it around. We put them out here to work on them. Inside the building to stack the rocket on it, take it out to the launch pad, set it out on the launch pad. The crawler's never underneath the platform when they're stacking or launching, only to transport. Here on the right is a little body of water, the left, big body of water. Everybody look out there. For those of you who came with someone who wants to be here, let's look for an alligator. Nothing but water. Nothing but water. All right. Hey, you know what? I see a break in the clouds. You know, I might get clearing out. The cloud level does look pretty high, so we might get a good view of the launch tonight. But off to your left, you see that white tower that marks the end of the south end of the runway. The orbiters would land. They would tow the orbiters from the runway down this road back to those processing facilities, and the runway will be used in the future. For instance, the Air Force's mini shuttle drone, the X-37B. Now, the vehicle's not classified. What they do is classified. And also, commercial space transportation systems will be using that runway in the future. How many of you have been to the Saturn V Center before? Anybody? Okay. Okay, you folks can just raise your hand, go to sleep. You've already heard this before. Now, when we get to the Saturn V Center, you get off the bus, you want to look for a big metal door. There's a red arch around the door. You want to walk right up to the door. There's a pre-show. These shows are really, really good. And the second, after the pre-show, the second show is called the Fire Room Show. Now, that's where you're going to witness the launch of Apollo. Wait, those people to raise your hands will tell you it's awesome because the Saturn V rocket is still currently the most powerful rocket ever lifted off the face of the earth, produced over 7.5 million pounds of thrust. Ladies and gentlemen, I grew up in Titusville. I've seen these Saturn V rockets take off. Let me tell you something. The presentation and the launch in the Fire Room Show, the seats vibrate, the windows shake and rattle. That's exactly what it was like when they launched those Saturn V rockets. I ought to know. I saw them go up. From 13 miles away, 16 miles away, it scared me as a little kid. The sound wave was hitting my chest like this. I didn't know what was going on. All right. So I hope you have a good time. I hope you stick around for the launch tonight. Look around, make sure you have all your personal belongings. By the way, the launch pads for the shuttles and the Saturn V rockets before the shuttles are across the water, straight ahead, about 3.5 miles away. When you go inside the Saturn V Center, if you go out the back doors, you can take a look at those launch pads. The launch for tonight is pad 41, and that launch pad, you can even see the rocket from here. This is actually a really good place to see this launch. And if you look, let's see. It's kind of hard with the bleachers in the way, but it's off to the right. Where's that Atlas V rocket? Where's that Atlas V rocket? Hold on, I know it's out there.
We lost it.
Where'd it go? Oh, okay, there it is. Yeah, it's back that way. Back that way. Oh, by the way, you see how the grounds I got? Sometime I can't let you off till I get some here. See how this dig up ground? You know what all this ground dug up for is from? Right now? Who? No, not gators. Wild pigs, wild pigs. You know all the wild boar and wild pigs in Florida? In fact, all the wild pigs in North America, all of them on this continent, are not originally from this continent. They were brought over by the original Spanish settlers in the 1600s. And they've been here so long they lost their Spanish accent and oink in Southern now. They go oink y'all. Thank you very much. But we, you know, the settlers that bring them, I researched this, it's very interesting. When the settlers coming over to the New World, be it from Spain, Russia, England, we have Russian potbelly pigs. We've got the English potbelly, Russian razorbacks. We got them. They brought them over, and they didn't keep them tame or corralled. They let them go in the wild. They knew they would populate, and then as the settlers came over, there would be a wild source of meat for the settlers. So that's pretty cool. But now we have a lot. We have as many wild pigs. We got alligators now. Oh, 26 is moving up. Okay, now look around. Make sure you have all your personal belongings, please. Watch your heads as you stand up, folks. Don't bump your heads. And watch your steps as you get off the bus. And enjoy the rest of your stay here at Kennedy Space Center. Thank you so very much, folks. Go for launch.
When I was a kid, I used to dream about flying through space. Every week on TV, I'd watch my heroes as they jumped into their rocket ships and took to the stars. And I wanted to be like them. They had courage, imagination, and no problem ever stood in their way for long. You know, in the end, when we actually did send men into space, it turned out that those were exactly the qualities it took.
I'm John Hudson. This is pad 39 of the Kennedy Space Center. I was a launch controller here when from this very spot, man took off to fly to the moon. It was a journey that began 12 years before that rocket ever left the ground. And it started on the other side of the world.
Back then, we were one of two superpowers that always seemed to be on the edge of a terrible war. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched the first ever man-made satellite into Earth orbit. They called it Sputnik, which means traveling companion. In a world where peace hung in a delicate balance, it seemed to create a dangerous advantage. Every ham radio operator in America could hear it beeping. People were afraid. Were the Soviets looking down on us? Watching us? If they could make a satellite pass over our cities, could they do the same with a bomb? Our own space program kicked into high gear, and less than 2 months later, we were ready to launch our own satellite. It was being called the space race, and we were running a distant second. In 1961, we fell even further behind. Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first man into space, circling the world in just 89 minutes. We had our own astronauts, and they were eager and ready to take the big ride. But our manned space program couldn't seem to get off the ground. We stuck with it, and on May 5th, 1961, things finally started going right. Astronaut Alan Shepard took his ship Freedom 7 6.5 miles into space. America had its first space hero. Just a few days later, our space program received a new challenge. But this one did not come from the Soviet Union. It came from our young president. In one inspiring moment, he changed the mission from one based in fear of the present to one of hope for the future.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
We hadn't been more than 16 minutes into space, and now we were going to the moon. We would have to design a rocket the size of a 36-story office building, put it together with the precision of a microscope, and accelerate it to the speed of the moon. Then we would have to guide it to a moving target 250,000 miles away. Many people thought it was an impossible dream, but 400,000 of us set about making that dream a reality. It would be the longest, most hazardous voyage that any man had dared to attempt. But step by step, mission by mission, we orbited the Earth, perfecting the skills and technologies we would need on this incredible journey. Our astronauts practiced maneuvering, docking, and the 1,000 other tasks that would comprise the moon mission. We created new alloys, lighter and stronger than anything seen before. We designed communication systems that would be reliable over the vast distances. And behind it all, we tried to perfect the rocket that would be powerful enough to punch out of Earth orbit and take us to the moon. One day, however, the dream of flying to the moon almost slipped away. It was January 27th, 1967. Astronauts Virgil Gus Grissom, Edward White, and Roger Chaffee were on board Apollo 1 for a plugs-out test, a full-scale dress rehearsal for the actual launch. Suddenly it happened. There was a fire in the capsule. 3 men whose lives had been in our hands were lost.
Surely the opening vistas of space promise high costs and hardships, as well as high reward. But this country of the United States was not built by those who waited and rested and wished to look behind them.
After Apollo 1, some thought we'd failed, and that the moon was out of our reach. But we owed it to those men to learn from their sacrifice and to carry on. We started taking the Apollo vehicle apart, piece by piece. Was the design flawed? Had safety been compromised? Tough questions. And we spent 1.5 years redesigning the spacecraft so that no astronaut's life would ever be at risk because we overlooked something, or because we could have done something better. A moon rocket is 91% high explosive, and it goes into the most unforgiving, hazardous environment there is. We could never make it risk-free, and the men who flew them knew that. We didn't send men into space again until Apollo 7 orbited the Earth testing some of the new design. When everything worked perfectly, the decision was made. The next mission would travel to the moon. It was mankind's destiny to leave the shores of our planet behind and strike out across the vast ocean of space. In the great span of our history, now was the time that we could. Now was the time that we would. We stood on the eve of the longest, most dangerous journey that any man had ever undertaken. And it would be taken by Frank Borman, James Lovell, and William Anders, the crew of Apollo 8. Through those doors, you'll find the firing room, launch control, just as it was on December 21st, 1968.
Please gather all of your belongings, take small children by the hand, and proceed through the open doors to firing room number 1. All strollers, wheelchair guests, and hearing impaired guests, please use the door to your far left.
Fan vad du måste öst ut pengar på det. Ja, bara för att komma först ju. Ja. Annars hade ju ryssarna trott att de var bäst. Ja. Typ. Smile for the camera.
Det skulle vi också få gå med här. Ja.
Ja. Detta har inte varit mer än 8 minuter.
For the comfort, safety, and viewing pleasure of all our guests, we ask that you refrain from flash photography for the duration of our presentation. If you must leave during the presentation, please exit through the doors on your right. Thank you.
IBM.
Kolla IBM.
Där är där de filmar där uppe. Kolla bakom.
For the comfort, safety, and viewing pleasure of all our guests, we ask that you refrain from flash photography for the duration of our presentation. If you must leave during the presentation, please exit through the doors on your right. Thank you.
Vad står klockan på?
This is the firing room. Launch control for the Apollo mission. This is not a mock-up. These are the very consoles we sat at when men first took off to fly to the moon. The tragedy of Apollo 1 had put us a year and a half behind. We were making up for it in one big leap, and we were doing it with a rocket that no man had ever flown before. It was a few days before Christmas 1968 when Apollo 8 sat on the pad. She was the first of a new kind, a moon rocket. This was the Phoenix, risen from the ashes of Apollo 1. The first Apollo crew did not die in vain. This was to be their testament. Stories high, she had been fully fueled throughout the night. The liquid oxygen in her tanks caused ice to form on the outside of the craft. The extreme temperature differences between the air and the sub-zero fuel caused the metal skin of the rocket to expand and contract. Everyone who was on the pad agreed. It was as though the rocket was alive, breathing, straining at the leash. Earlier in the morning, astronauts Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders had made their final preparations before taking that long ride out to the waiting spacecraft. The minimum safe distance from a Saturn V at liftoff was 3 miles. The reason was simple. When fully fueled, the rocket contained the explosive power of an atomic bomb. As the clock counted down, the astronauts and all of us in launch control went through the pre-flight checks. Our hands on the controls of the most powerful, most complex machine ever built. It had over 2 million separate systems, and to bring these men back alive, everything had to work perfectly.
Each individual system had been tested, but what we didn't know was how they would perform when all 2 million began to work together. That moment would come when the countdown clock reached 0. If a maneuvering thruster failed, if communications broke down, if navigation was off by 1 degree, if any piece of the miles of wiring, circuits, relays, or valves was defective, Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders would pay with their lives. As they sat, waiting for launch on that chill December morning, these 3 astronauts were back to what they had always been, test pilots. You are now in the final minutes before the launch of Apollo 8, right here where it actually happened. Mankind is about to leave his planet behind and journey to another. It is one of those rare moments when history is not being made, destiny is being embraced.
Attention all personnel, the countdown clock will start on my mark at T-minus 3 minutes. 3, 2, 1, 1.
This is launch control. T-minus 3 minutes and counting. We've completed our communications checks with the Apollo 8 astronauts in the cabin and the communications tower probe.
Verify effectively out, T-minus 5. You are cleared for 5 minutes.
During this period, once we do get the firing command, the various tanks within the 3 stages of the Saturn V launch vehicle begin to pressurize.
Firing command enabled.
We have firing command. The firing command is stable at all sequence T-minus 2 minutes, 20 seconds. Our status quo indicates that all aspects are ready, instrument fields ready, spacecraft ready, final check of the emergency detection system, that will be allowed also now. First stage preparations are completed.
All systems are A, okay. Come on, ready to go to convoy. Stand by water. Okay, you're on. All systems go.
45 seconds incoming. The first stage of oxygen tank has been pressurized, and the pressure is still building up. Coming up in 90 seconds, T-minus 90 seconds incoming. The Apollo 8 crew standing by, spacecraft commander Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, Bill Anders. We now report that the liquid hydrogen tank in the 3rd stage is pressurized. 1 minute 15 seconds. All 3rd stage propellants pressurized at this time as we come up on the 60-second mark on the flight to the home. T-minus 60 seconds and counting. The vehicle now is completely pressurized. We're coming up on power transfer shortly. We have the power transfer. We're now on the flight batteries within the launch vehicle. Final reports coming from Borman at this time. Final look at the switch list to lift his spacecraft. 20 seconds, all aspects. We are still low at this time.
15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10.
Apollo 8 successfully orbited the moon, and the astronauts returned safely to the Earth. I know. I'm Jim Lovell, and I was one of the crew of this spacecraft, Apollo 8. We were the first men to see the surface of the moon from just a few miles away. But it was the hundreds of thousands of men and women who worked in that team, and the millions of people who supported the mission that really made it possible. That way, I guess, we all went to the moon. Now, on the other side of those doors, you'll find an actual Saturn V moon rocket. It's still the most powerful, the most complex machine ever built. And I guess it's the only one that could take you to another planet. I've actually got to fly one on a second flight to the moon called Apollo 13. But that's another story.
Please watch your step as you exit the firing room. Continue your journey at the Lunar Theater, located near the nose end of the Saturn V rocket. Enjoy your visit to the Apollo Saturn V Center.
Det vibrerar. Var det? Det är där, fikahörnan där. Allting med oss, ja.
Är det nu vi ska uppifrån? Måste vi gå på flyg?
Fy fan! Det trodde man inte. Ja, det är de. Det är fint här över folket. That's the how long it takes to get on the cell phone.
Yeah.
It's better.
Alldeles skulle säga så.
Oj, oj, oj.
It's not that far away.
Nu kommer ljudet. Yes. Nu kommer ljudet.
En hel skolklass. Det var ju rätt länge sedan. Men lärare
var det bara. Fy fan vad häftigt.
det var kulast.
Ja. Det känns som att den...
Går inte att ta det in i området.
Nu drar de iväg känns det som.
Kolla. Det är så åt här om någonting.
Ja.
Och på kameran är det inte den vita pricken som gäller.
Nej. För det, ett tag så det bara ut som en cykel. Där slutar jag filma.
Det är inte så mycket mer att filma nu.
Nej, det går inte.